Hey everyone, welcome back. Now here we are on the second week of mixing and mastering at Slam Academy and their Ableton Live program. Here we're using Live 11 to mix down this track. Uh, Today we're going to focus on getting a good understanding of the overall volume mix and really making sure we've got the right levels for all of our tracks across the whole thing, creating a nice balance. Really the mix down is what we're about to do now. So let's start by listening to this track and looking at our meters. We're going to learn a little bit about metering, headroom, and also about the frequency content that all of our instruments are generating. So going back to that earlier session, a really cool thing we can do here, maybe set our mixer up, have our spectrum up there so we can see all the channels. Everything's nicely organized. Let's check this out. Nice. So if we look, we've got a couple different bits of visual feedback we can learn from. First of all, looking at amplitude. Let's start with that. So this is where, again, I like to have those meters nice and tall. We get a nice visual resolution for how many decibels we're working with. And each of these horizontal little lines is 6 dB. And I always like to say, especially in my sound design course, understanding what decibel is kind of like 1 dB is kind of like just a little serving of volume, if you will. And generally when we're adjusting things, whether it's inside of a compressor or even on the mixer here, we're going to be moving things up and down in volume and decibels, and 1 dB is kind of like just barely enough for other people to notice when you're making the adjustment. If you adjust something by more than like 3 dB, everyone's going to notice whether or not they're paying close attention. So sometimes we'll be adjusting things by tenths of a dB by clicking on a fader and holding shift and using our arrow keys. We can look in these little data fields and it'll see how many dB we're adjusting. You've got 10 shift clicks before anyone's going to notice, really, and like 30 or 3 dB before it's going to jump out at people. Those are kind of the areas and the realms we're going to be fine-tuning our volume. And when it comes to decibels, we can look at our meters to see how loud things are. But as we mentioned in the dynamics video a couple videos back, we can see the softer green tall peaks. That's the momentary peak volume, whereas the brighter green lower volume is the RMS, also known as kind of the average volume. The distance between those peaks and the average is like how compressed or how loud something's going to feel. So especially as it relates to our master volume and how much headroom we have overall, it's going to make sense to keep an eye on that. So that's the first tip, is metering in decibels and how much 1 dB really is. The upper little readout here you can click on, and that resets the meter as far as the peaking height. So if I click here, they're all reset, and now I could just hit play. In fact, I could go to like a heavier part of the track, maybe like the drop. And then I can hit stop, and I can see how loud everything is. So like my sound effects tracks are at -14, my harmony track is at -7.5, my melodies at -12. Look, my kick drum over here is at -1.5. Those are good numbers to note because we're going to be readjusting the volume of all of our tracks and trying to fill up this master volume with all just the good stuff, making sure that every dB over here is all things that are desirable that we really want. And there's kind of a little bit of a roadmap I can lay out for you as we get on to the mix down in the upcoming video about how to use those decibels to the best of our advantage. So we have peaking level, we have the volume fader level, which is adjustable in tenths by holding shift with arrows, and then we have peak versus average. So those are all things you want to be aware of. Now, the next thing it's good to look at is the spectrum. And I put the spectrum on the master track a couple videos ago, but that makes good sense to have that there. And sometimes I'll even go to my preferences here and zoom out a touch so I can still have those nice big tall volume meters and a nice spectral view here where I can see the spectrum. Once I get that all set up, usually what I'll do is I'll take the spectrum device on the master again, and instead of having it in this auto volume range where the y-axis is always scaling up and down all the time, like this, watch how, see how it kind of starts compressing as sounds get quieter and quieter, in other words, zooming out and zooming out. That's kind of annoying. So click here on your range and put this maximum at -0. And then, I guess, or 0, same thing. And then for the min range, which is the bottom, let's put this at around 100. So the quietest sound that's going to show up here is going to be like -95 or 100. And then the top of our screen, what we can see is literally the ceiling. So that way when you hit stop, it doesn't scale anymore. It just stays right there. And you can even see, okay, if each of these horizontal lines in this case are 12 dB, looks like my kick is up here. My bass drum is up here at about -10. And I'm looking down in this little data field. This is really helpful. My kick drum's at -10. The punch of my kick is around -11. And you can see where each of these peaks are and how loud they are. And that'll give you some tips for how to adjust things. There's a little bit of a standard you can use when you're looking at this slope going down. It's called the pink noise reference. Pink noise is like not unlike white noise where it's even volume all the way across, but it's actually tilted downward. So, and this is a standard that we can look at, and you don't want to live and die by this, but generally speaking, the loudest thing in your mix should be the bass, the sub bass, and then things should get progressively a little softer and quieter as we get up here into the texture territory. So all of our melodies and harmonies are going to be visible here between about 80, 90 hertz and maybe 2 or 3K. And then this is all the ambience and texture and presence, whereas the sub bass is up here. And I can even tell by looking, I can probably get away with turning my kick drum up a little bit. Whatever sound is right here, which I believe is the pluck of the bass sound, that back to wow, wow, that guy, it's a little loud. I can probably turn that down. And we're going to try to achieve a nice even slope going down. And when we do that, we're going to probably be mixing all around our kick drum being right around -10 or -10 or -12 is kind of a cool reference. So this is all just more preparation for the mix. We understand decibels, how our meters work, how to adjust in tenths, how to scale our screen, how to look at our spectrum and have it be in a fixed amplitude range, and how to really maybe glean some tips from what we're seeing when we look at these interfaces. So for our next video, we're going to talk about gain staging and headroom, and we're going to start to build our mix pyramid right around the corner. So hold tight, and I'll see you in the next video.